The role of and expectations of a life group volunteer are this. See, the role of a life group volunteer is to be a facilitator. You are a facilitator, not a teacher. I want to make that very clear. We have student pastors that teach and they will give the lesson. See, your role is to take the lesson and make them think about it and talk about it through questions which we will provide for you. You see, if you talk the entire time, they will forget everything. Trust me, I've been there. But if you facilitate the entire time, they will remember some things. See, that's why we have you sit in a circle, not in a classroom setting. You should be sitting on the floor with the students or in seats together with them, not above them. You need to not hover over the students. This is very, very important. You see, you are a student pastor, those 8 to 10 students. Call them weekly. Pour into those students by developing that relationship. See, once again, we go back to relationships because that's what student ministry is all about. They are paramount. They are central to everything we do as a student ministry. We don't want to be a club. We don't just want to be a good organization. We want to be an organism that is going to change the world. And relationships is how that will take place. See, the expectations of a student ministry leader are this: be on time. Typically, that means you get there about 45 minutes before the program starts. So if your program starts at 7 o'clock, chances are your student pastor has already told you you need to get there about 6:15 for your huddle. Now, there'll be a quick huddle for your volunteers before the program typically starts, where everybody's on the same schedule and the same level of thinking for that night. But you need to attend weekly. That is an expectation, or at least inform the student pastor at your campus that you'll be absent more than a day in advance. See, this ministry is run around you. We've set it up that way, which means, guess what? You need to be there. And so please let us know at least one day in advance so that we can coordinate your replacement. I always love to tell this to volunteers when they're starting to join our ministries, that you need to be fat. Now, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm not trying to say that you need to eat a bunch of Mexican food, even though that sounds very, very good right now because I didn't get a good lunch today. You need to be faithful. See, FAT stands for faithful, available, teachable. When you're faithful, your students will notice that. When you're available, your students will notice that. And guess what? When you're teachable, God can do something amazing through you. So be faithful, available, and teachable. Contact your students weekly. Now, I went through the contact plan in the previous video. You can always go back and re-watch those. Weekly attend adult services during the weekend. Pastor Bill has incredible messages every single week. That is a part of being a life group volunteer. You have to sit through those messages and what we like to say in quote unquote big church, right? Love and model Jesus publicly and privately. And here's why. Because what you do privately will come out publicly. I promise you that. Your sin will find you out. So that is an expectation. Love and model Jesus privately and publicly. You can't take students where you aren't going yourself. Remember that. You see, we have to have a desire to serve. Have a servant's heart. See, if Christ can serve and not be served, as Jesus would say, then guess what? You and I can do the same. We have to be positive. We don't have time for negative people, to be completely honest with you, here at Student Ministry, at CU Students, because we're trying to take more ground for the kingdom. So if you're gonna be negative, save us the time and don't volunteer. Come with a positive heart. See, if you have problems, guess what? I do too. You can either talk about them or don't talk about them. If they're a big enough problem, talk with your campus student pastor. But don't bring that to your students. You are not their friend, you are their leader. Now here's a big one, social media. We all have our takes on what's good for social media or not good for social media. Ladies, I wanna talk to you for a moment. Do not post pics of you in provocative clothes. And honestly, guys, I could say the same for you guys. Limit your gym selfies, all right? Nobody wants to see all that. We love you. We know you're working out. We're proud of you. But we don't need to see you with your clothes off either, okay? So just make sure that you're being mindful of what is being posted on all platforms of your social media, okay? We need to sit with students. We need to interact before and after service with them, because once again, you can't lead them from the back of the room, so sit with them in the service. See, guys, we need to learn about these students' world. Social media is a big part of it. Movies are big. School, you need to get to know about their school. Some of the stuff they're learning right now in 6th grade is more than what you learned in college. I promise you that. So we need to learn about their school. And the last thing is, we need to learn about cultural relevancy. You need to know what shoes are hot that students are wearing. You need to know what kind of clothes they're wearing. I'm not saying you need to change your wardrobe. Please don't show up as a 50-year-old in the same clothes that our middle school and high schoolers are wearing. Do not do that. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that you need to know what they are into, okay? Here's another thing. You need to go to camp. That's the beginning of our year. June is camp, and that is the launching pad for all that we do here at CU students. And here's 3 words that I don't want you to fear, because every time that I talk with a new volunteer, they go, well, I don't know. Those are 3 words I do not want you to fear. What if I don't know the answer? What if I don't know this? What if I don't know that? It's okay. I'm not bothered by this. But then I go and get the answer. When I have a student ask me, hey, Pastor Joey, what about this in the Bible? And if I don't have the answer, I go, I don't know, let's go find it out together. And then guess what? God has presented a moment for you to learn something, but also for that student to learn something as well. And they will learn so much from your humility than if you just had the answer. So be broken. Pray for these students and don't feel like you always have to know the answer. Now, here's what to expect as a student volunteer. You're gonna have some good weeks. You're gonna have some great weeks. You know, in seeking those great weeks and those good weeks, I want you to celebrate those little wins. Man, little Johnny finally remembered what was talked about in the message. He didn't sleep it through. That's a big win. That's a little win that you can celebrate in little Johnny's life. But all your students aren't always going to show up early and say, man, I led 13 friends to Christ. Or, man, I led 50, or, I led 100. They're not always gonna do that. And so I want you to know you don't always have to live off of good weeks or great weeks. You see, if someone shows up that hasn't been, I want you to celebrate internally. If someone has their quiet time, celebrate with them. If someone doesn't call you the old guy or roll their eyes the whole time, which is what I celebrate, then do that as well. If a student returns your text, celebrate the small wins, sometimes internally, but sometimes externally as well. And here's the other thing, you're gonna have some bad weeks. See, remember, you aren't doing this just for the good weeks. You're doing this to point students to know Jesus for better or for worse. This is a till death do us part thing. And so it won't always be perfect, but it will always be worth it. And it will change a student or maybe a group of students' lives. So how to have the best group in the world? I get this question all the time. Pastor Joey, how do I have the best group in the world? How do I have the best group in the student ministry? Here's number 1, provide snacks. Sounds very simple, but it goes a long way. It brings their attention in and it helps apply the principle, okay? Another thing is make your group the group to be at. Do whatever it takes to make that happen. Food and drink, they might distract people from the discomfort that they may feel from not knowing everyone in that group. Number 2, say each student's names weekly. Get to know them. You have to know their name. They will ask you if they do, and they will feel it if you don't. So hear this if you don't hear anything else. You are valuable. I'm talking to you on the other end of the screen. You are valuable in the lives of these students. You see, that's the roles of and the expectations for a student life group volunteer.